Okay, so this time we're going to be looking at the GHD Mark 5 Thermistor side mounting part on the ceramic plate assembly really, and this type can also be used in the 4.2 Type 2, although they will not generally have the coloured plates. This is more of a Mark 5 feature. The thermistor can cause many problems, and the main problem it causes is the thermal fuse to fail, which we've just covered in another video. So we're going to assume that the thermistor is faulty and you need to change this. If you're very lucky, you'll be able to push the plastic across slightly and the spring plate and the element will slide as well, and you can dismantle it by pushing it sideways. In this case it's not having it, so what we normally do is just with a flat bladed screwdriver slide this as far as you can and then press across and slide. In this case we're going to need also to go in on the end and push and free up the ceramic plate. There we go, and this will now allow you to proceed with sliding this apart. If it sticks again, press the metal and then press the ceramic element and just keep repeating that process until it all slides off the end like that. I'm just going to put that to one side. Now, even if the thermistor appears to be well stuck on there, you can find that there is a very small airspace just underneath it, and you can test for that just by applying some pressure there. Now you saw how easy, I'm not pressing hard, it looked like it was in good condition, just a little touch of the screwdriver and that has fallen off, and that very small gap between the thermistor and the heating element will, with repeated use, just cause the irons to overheat when they start up. They will come back to temperature unless this is faulty, but that constant overshooting of temperature, it might only be up to 190, 200 degrees, will eventually cause the thermal fuse to fail. So do check, even though it looks like it's all there perfectly, it is being held in place by this clip. So dismantle it as I've shown you and just put a little bit of pressure on the thermistor and you'll invariably find that it will fall off. At that point you will need to fit one of our replacement elements with the thermistor pre-attached. I'll just grab one. That's what the new one looks like, and you fit that by applying a fresh even layer of thermal paste all over the element, and then you can pop it into the ceramic plate and just wiggle it left and right just to bed it in and make sure that it's positioned evenly, an equal gap either end. Then grab the spring clip, just make sure there's no damage. You'll see here there's little pieces that are bent up and round, and if they've been compressed you can put a screwdriver in there and just bend them up. If that came out very easily, there perhaps isn't enough pressure on these little bits of bent metal and you can just bend them up a little bit. At that point, with this bent piece towards the back, and again if this has been bent in any way, you can just bend it down so it is applying more pressure to the element. Just tuck that in place. It's very important at this stage that you make sure these thermistor wires are in the correct place. In this section here, they should be underneath there. That's raised up this area. Again, as before, if you can't do this by hand, then it's perfectly okay to gently push right in the edges with the screwdriver, and you'll see that we have got those wires in that middle section there. and all we need to do then is fit the silicon back again, and this is simply 2 wires in each side. Just line those up and feed that through, and that's the position that you would want to see it in. Now at this stage you can get this the right way round. The slot needs to be nearer that end, so you can see like that. If you just line it up on one side like so, leaving a gap the other side, you can then put it on the bench, and I'll try and do this so you can see it by going behind it and then just push it down, and that's it. Separate the wires out. That is, once it's been wiped over, is good to fit back in the arm. A couple of points to remember. The new element with Thermistor, the Thermistor wires are thicker than the originals. If you have a look at the original, you'll see it's got very thin wires. This type you can feed back through the circuit board with a blob of solder to secure that. If you're fitting the new one, do not try and fit these wires through the PCB. Just lay these wires flat on the PCB and apply some solder directly to the pad and the wire, so it lies flat on the top of the PCB and not being fed through the hole like that. Okay, you may, if you want, feel the need just to trim these soldered leads just a little bit, just to shorten them, if you feel that that's required. Some of these are a little longer than the others, but I always just trim them just a fraction and then solder them on top, and you should be good to go. As I say, if this has failed, you'll probably find the thermal fuse has failed, so please look at the other video on how to change and repair this side.